Good afternoon to our first students. My name is Susan Ashmore, and I'm the Development Director for First in Texas. We continue our discussion today about the electric industry and how CPS Energy is working with their contractor Zpryme to develop an app called Electrify San Antonio, using augmented reality to explain the electric process from the source into your home. This app can be used by anyone in Texas and across the globe. You will hear about many different types of STEM jobs involved in producing this app, including becoming a coder and app developer, skills needed to learn augmented reality, using 3D assets and 3D visualization, and learn why substations and transformers are so important. So let me introduce you to our panelists. Kristina Duarte is the Manager of Education and Mentorship Programs for CPS Energy. She is responsible for overseeing new and existing education and mentoring programs, along with cultivating internal and external partnerships. Kristina has worked passionately to support various programs in the Alamo area, including First in Texas. Her drive, determination, and passion comes from wanting to provide a better future for her family and community. Our second panelist is Jorge Ortiz. Jorge has a PhD and is a Fulbright scholar from Peru that studied computer engineering in Kansas. He worked at Garmin International as a project engineer, making electronic devices for their aviation division. Jorge is the director of XR at Zpryme, where he develops interactive visual experiences for customer engagement. Our third panelist is Rebecca Diaz. She is a virtual augmented reality specialist and strategist at Zpryme. Rebecca believes virtual reality is the future of education and online communication, and it is evolving into virtual reality instructional avenues. Rebecca oversees the motion capture environment. She also oversees the mixed reality and green screen videos, designs lesson plans, builds the 3D scenery, customizes human avatars, and does voice-over narration. Our last panelist is Dustin Matkey. Dustin is a manager over service restoration for CPS Energy and was actively involved in the development of the app. He provides operational and strategic leadership for the reliability and system restoration area in a 24/7 environment. Dustin is NERC certified transmission operator and an ERCOT certified transmission officer. We all thank Dustin for keeping the lights on. So let's get started. I'm handing off today's session to our panelists. Kristina, are you ready to power up this session?
Susan, thank you for the introduction. I want to start off first by explaining what the Electrify app is for. So what we wanted to do is provide an easily accessible way for all age groups to learn how power goes from the main source all the way to their home, but through an augmented reality experience. Now, before we move on, I want to explain, how all of this came about. When I first started working for CPS Energy, my impression of, how electricity gets from one place to the other was kind of like flip of a switch. I was very wrong. As I started meeting some of the employees, they all explained, no, there's so much more to it. There's a process. It's not just flip of a switch. However, they kept using terms that I wasn't familiar with, so their explanations kind of just went over my head, And I thought, there needs to be an easier way to explain how power goes from the main source to a home or business. So that's when I reached out to some of our engineers and some of our linemen, and we brainstormed, and we came up with what you see on the slide, our power source tables. And as you can see, we've got various age groups there, and that was the whole point, is to create something that was easy to understand. And for me, I'm a visual learner, so there you go, you have visual, and then it also provided a tactile experience. We've taken these tables to many education and community events, but times are changing, and we realized, kids are, with their phones, always looking at their phones. So it was time to do something different. And that's when I met ZPryme's Jason Rodriguez. Jason introduced the idea of creating an augmented reality version of the tables, and we jumped on the opportunity. And then that's when I met Rebecca and Jorge. They did need help from some of our CPS Energy content experts. Two of them weren't able to be here. Ryan Hogue, he's our Director of Procurement, and Tyler Briner, who's one of our linemen. But we were very lucky to have Dustin Motkin, he's our Service Restoration Manager. But I'm gonna stop there and I'm going to hand it off to Rebecca.
Thank you, Kristina. So yes, having those content experts were so vital for Jorge and I. Like you can see on our PowerPoint here, like these tables were huge and they contained a lot of information. And where Jorge and I are experts in our field, we didn't know much about the energy distribution process. Like Kristina pointed out, I also thought that it was almost kind of like having a pizza delivered to your house. You flip on the switch and the power comes on and it just comes right to your doorstep or wherever. But it actually goes through all of these tiny pieces, essential pieces along the way. So what Jorge and I had to do, because we started with just like a blank slate, is we had to figure out how are we going to get these tables, which they're ginormous, they're about 6 foot by 4 foot. How are we going to get those into the app? So Jorge, if you want to jump to the next slide. This video is going to be a little teaser of what we were actually able to accomplish. I'm going to go ahead and play it.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. So there you just had a little sample of what the end product looked like. And we were very strategic about the things that we chose because we needed first to get all the information. And then we had to get all of our models and we were able to add animations, checkpoints, and interaction. And whereas the table had really good interaction, we didn't want to lose that when we went to our app. Kristina, when she was telling me about the tables when we first met, she also let us know about how they actually had like a real solar panel on there and they would have a light shine on the solar panel and that would create the electricity. So the kids could see how it worked. But sometimes there would be maintenance issues, like maybe the light bulb would go out, or I think even Kristina, you mentioned once that like the solar panel melted from the light bulb. Excuse me. So because we were taking advantage of this technology, and especially the AR, where they could walk around as if they were still at a table, and they could still interact through clicking and searching. They were. That's why we decided to do that. So Jorge and I wanted to take you on a little journey on how we took this idea that Kristina presented to us from scratch to publishing, or we're about to publish. So what we had to do first, Jorge, if you'll jump to the next slide, is Dustin, actually, if you could take over now. And the first thing that we had to do was get all the information. So Dustin will take you on a little journey and tell us some information about the energy distribution process.
Thank you, Rebecca. So what you're looking at is, you know, there's lots of parts of the power system. So we had to start from where it was generated. From the video here, you can start to see where he's showing us the power plant, right? So that's where all of our power is produced. Then as you go through it, you know, there's got to be a way to transmit that power over long distances. So out of the power plant, it goes into a substation, which actually raises the voltage so it can be transferred over a long distance. Once it gets to a certain area where power needs to be redistributed, it goes into a substation and then is actually stepped back down through transformers to a voltage that's sustainable for residential and commercial buildings. And then, believe it or not, you actually have another transformer that's pretty much most of the time outside on your pole or on the ground that breaks it down to the voltage that you see in your homes, your 120, 240 volt systems. So it is a big, large system with lots of moving parts, and I think this video and this augmented reality deal is going to be great for kids and adults to learn the process. And like Kristina said, you really, in the beginning, you really don't know where it comes from, but I love the education that these kids are getting through this. So.
Awesome, thank you. So Jorge, if you want to jump to the next slide. After our trip from San Antonio that Jorge and I took, we were so excited. The whole way home, we were talking about ideas. We were actually having a little bit of trouble with that because with the 3D assets that we use, sometimes having like the spatial awareness of what's actually going on was kind of difficult. So the first thing that we did when we started making the app was we mapped it out. What you see here on the PowerPoint is in our studio, we just got painter's tape and we marked our 6 by 4 foot space that we wanted to use. And maybe you can see something that kind of represents a W and an S and a box. And that's our wind power, our solar power, and our power plant. And then on the other side, you can see our houses and the subs. Well, it doesn't all look like that, but it it did eventually, because then once we had that, Jorge and I were able to be better teammates and we were able to more effectively communicate, oh, we want this animation that happened here. And we were quite literally acting it out. Having some dance experience that really helped fine tune my 3D spatial awareness. So that was something that really helped when we were in this phase. So
when we start with a new project, it's always difficult to not just jump in and get to the fun stuff. Part of it is just making sure that we have an actual plan to be able to complete the project. You know, and the fun part kind of comes in the middle, but it's difficult to restrain yourself and keep organized.
I know I get really excited and I just want to power through. So Jorge, if you want to jump to the next slide and talk a little bit about the next step once we've mapped it out.
Sure. A lot of it is just bringing it from concept to actual implementation, and part of it is just having the visual representation of what it's going to be, right? So a lot of it is, well, I know how, it's almost like directing a movie. I know what the story that's supposed to tell it, but I need compelling visuals in order to be attractive. And generally, we have to start from 3D models and map textures and the like wooden textures to the electrical pole and metal to the anodized, whatever those are. And that brings a lot of skills. One of the things that me and Becca do, actually that we do not do, is graphic design. Definitely that's a skill set that is required in order to present this in a visual, very visual media, but we don't have those skills. So we rely on other people to be able to create these models and to actually visualize how the whole thing is gonna look like. And these are certainly very specific models. We have all the little parts that we're wanting to concentrate on as part of our story. Because the story was, how does electricity get to your home? So we wanted to represent it as close to reality as possible.
Yeah, it's sometimes, just real quick, a note on that last slide. Sometimes those assets are not as easy as you would think, like just drag and drop into our game engine, which we'll show you guys later. So sometimes it can take up to 2 hours to get something just as simple as this to work beautifully and not be distorted in any way once we finally put it in there, which is just something I wanted to comment on. So now we can jump to the next slide. Thank you. So one of the programs that we use is Audacity. This is an audio program, and this is something that I've been working a lot with for the past 3 years. I started working with Audacity for Jorge and my passion project, which is when we did dance lessons in virtual reality. Maybe we'll talk about that later if we have some time. But the funny thing about recording audio, I'm not an audio engineer by any means, but even though I don't specialize in this, getting information from people who do was really a great tool for me. So things that I would never thought about, like for example, the first time I sat down to do an audio recording, it was raining outside and I could hear the rain in all of my audio. And just being detail oriented about noticing whether my AC is turning on and off while I'm recording, or just knowing that I'm gonna have to take retakes. I think some of these things, and then being able to really use a lot of the software's very powerful functions like noise reductions or, oh shoot, the other one is escaping me, but there's other things that you can do to make a very high quality audio with Audacity here. There's a free version online. There's no the restrictions from just downloading it now or watching a lot of great free tutorials on how to make some really great stuff there. So for CPS, for Electrify San Antonio, I think we did about maybe 30 small clips of recordings, which was, I guess, not an abundant, but it was funny when we were having to retake some of them once they were already in the beta process, just because I was listening and realizing that I was saying things like, instead of saying affecting, I was saying infecting, which are just a funny thing I wanted to share with you guys. So Jorge is going to talk about the next program that we use a lot, which is called Visual Studio.
Sure, I want to interject on this slide that also we find ourselves needing a lot of voice actors and music, sometimes custom music. I remember I was on a virtual reality game jam, people just getting together and creating content over a weekend. And there were some people that just did that. They were musical composers, and all they did was, well, essentially video game music. So I always find that interesting, and sound effects as well. And I believe we have some actors that did voice acting. So that was certainly a good amount of people that had very different skill sets from what we did, definitely being to contribute to a larger project. All of it comes to being able to bring all these assets together and make them interactive. And for video making, there's very little interactivity except how the camera zooms and pans into interesting things that the director is telling you, hey, this is interesting. In virtual reality, we have to accommodate for the user being able to look at an apple on the floor and saying, I find that interesting. I'm gonna see if I wanna pick it up. So to do that, we use a lot of programming. Actually, part of the programming that you see on the left is what we used for this app. There's you'll be able to see, but there's an intro, there's a train bringing coal to a power plant, there's a solar and wind things. And it was very difficult when you create a program to test, especially if it's like a storyline, because you don't want to hear the intro 7 times just trying to get to the middle part. So what we're doing here is just creating different scenes so that we can test whatever scene is problematic or the current one that we're developing, keeping in mind that all the previous scenes are already working. And then there's a lot of timing involved in making a cool interaction. And that's part of the bottom, left bottom code. If you ever done some programming, some of it will start to sound like English. Like for example, activate object with delay, set active to either true or false. I'm gonna make the delay 2 seconds and so on. So learning a new program is almost like learning a new language. And definitely if you have analytical skills, that's a good skill set to have for game development and app development. Let's see. And then Unity. You might have seen that logo around. I was playing on my Xbox Overcooked 2, and the first thing that showed is made with Unity. That Unity is a game engine that we use. It's really useful to bring all the different skill sets that we have and all the different resources that we've accumulated from those skill sets, audio, video, 3D models, programming, and just make them into a coherent project. Generally a game, but it doesn't have to be a game. It can be educational, like this app. There's not really any requirements to download Unity. You can just try it out. They have certainly a lot of tutorials if you want to, try your hand at it and create a super small game in an afternoon. That it allows you to do that. That's how I started. I never heard of this until one day I decided maybe I should do virtual reality. Downloaded it, tried it, and then the rest is history, I guess. This is a very complex slide. I'll try to go for quadrants. So in the top left, you can see that Unity is able to deploy to different platforms. It can deploy to a Windows computer, to a Mac computer, to an Android phone, an iOS smartphone as well, and some actual game platforms like Xbox and PlayStation. So it's a very comprehensive platform to be able to deploy on the top. Let's go to the top right. That's usually what we do day in and day out. We have a lot of different things going on. We have a scene that you see in the center. It's very graphical so that we can see how it looks like. On the left panel, we have all the things inside the scene and how we order them. On the bottom panel, we have all the assets that we have available to put on the scene. If you want a new tree, then we would grab it from our asset and put it on the actual scene. And then the inspector gives us more detail. On the left bottom, you can see the energy storyline. That's part of what we did. We have some narration items, which is what Becca was saying about doing voiceovers for what we are doing. And again, we see the same structure. We have an intro, a train, some feedback when you click on the train, and so on. And on the bottom right is pretty much all of these coming together. And especially if using some visual effects like particles. That was a lot. It's complex. Becca, go ahead.
Sorry, just for reference, like Jorge mentioned, this is a very busy slide. If you were to start downloading Unity right now, just for some perspective, all of the things that you're seeing right now would be 100% blank. Almost everything that Jorge and I do, we do from scratch. That's all I wanted to say.
And then Becca, you want to take this?
Yes, this is part of my favorite part, is when we get to the point where we get to start testing. That means that we've done enough of the initial work, which is normally maybe not the most tedious, but definitely once you've gotten past that, like, you really start feeling your progress here. So when we get to that point, Jorge and I will put it on our personal phones, something about this size, and we'll test it on what we have. Perhaps, my sister has an iPhone. I'll ask her to try it out so I can see it on her iPhone, and then we'll start sharing it with everyone else. What you have here is some live actual feedback that we got from some of our team members. And the funny thing is that Jorge and I, after testing it, like he was saying when we were looking at the Visual Studio, after testing it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, we just know how we want it to work, and so we make it work like that. And when we give it to other people, I tell them, I'm like, try to break it, just so we can see, or so we can make sure that it's the best user experience possible. I'm pretty sure that when we were in this phase of getting this feedback, something that I realized is, for some reason, like our terrain, the grass you see there, would just start like floating off. I'm not sure why well, I know now, but like at the moment, you're just like, what? How come? Why does? Oh, okay, we gotta arrange a few more things. So testing, it's just a very essential part. Almost everything, almost every change that we do, we'll test it, and then we'll make another change, and we'll test it, and we'll then just nonstop. And I believe in almost any development career that anybody chooses, testing is just such a huge chunk of what you're going to be doing. So, is there anything you wanted to add to that, Jorge?
I guess you kind of need to have a thick skin when you get feedback from people. A lot of it seems harsh because you've spent a lot of time making something that looks good to you, and then say like, hey, what is going? It's broken. And you just have to realize that most people that give you feedback are there to actually help you. They want you to succeed. So that's an interesting thing to realize as you were testing that, the engineer in me says that feedback that it says like, oh, these things are broken, these things do not work, I don't like this, is a lot better than feedback that says like, oh, cool. Because it just gives you more to work with. And those are the kind of people that want to see you succeed. So I find that interesting. But testing is a process. So once you get the feedback from people, what you need to do is just incorporate it, right? This is, again, an actual example for the feedback that we got. Now, like in the introduction, they said that I have a PhD in electrical engineering. So I would think that I know a lot of things, but in the end, it's CPS workers that have all the experience in the field, and whatever I wrote apparently was really wrong. So they know what they're talking about and said, hey, you got it wrong. This is what needs to happen. And instead of getting annoyed at the feedback, I'd say like, okay, these guys are experts in their field. Instead of being competitive or arrogant, why this is the reason why we partner with CPS. It's like, hey, let's, you guys have some amazing people that do this electricity maintenance and repairs and all that day in, day out. With the virtual reality, let's get all our talent together and make something amazing. And that's what happened.
Yes, so then we get to do steps 6, 7, and 8 over and over and over again until we get it right. You can see that as we started doing it over and over again, like Sean let us know that it was working really well. Aaron Hardick still we still needed a couple of tweaks to make sure that everything was right. And then after doing this process, I don't know, I'm sure we went back and forth at least 3 to 4 times. What would you guess, Jorge? How many times did we send out beta tests?
I think there were like 5 builds to test. 5?
Mm-hmm. Okay, 5, that sounds about right. And it took us about 5 times to finally get it right, because when we are ready to show it on like a mass scale, Jorge, if you want to jump to the next slide, then we're ready to publish. So right now, I think we have all temporary, conditionally passed.
Yes, we're on the testing program. One thing that happened is I believe we were ready to, I think me and Becca were getting ready to go to Kristina, just drive to San Antonio and with our phones and say, hey, test it out. And then COVID happened, right? So one thing that we have to do is actually publish the app in a beta state so that she could test it from a distance without us having to come together and just taking care of our health and stuff. And yeah, so we created a testing program. I believe that right now, I don't think we have a link on these slides, but we would be able to provide a testing program if you guys, the audience wants to look at it and say, hey, I want to be part of this. I want to give you my feedback and see how it worked. That's in the where we currently are in the process.
I think I was told a good testing group consists of about 300 people.
Yeah.
So our next slide is a video of our entire app. It's about 7 7 to 9 minutes long. And we were kind of hoping that, Dustin, if you wouldn't mind, kind of whenever you see something that excites you or that you know a lot about, if you wanted to talk about it, or Kristina, if you wanted to take it over here and talk while everybody's watching a little bit about more about CPS Energy. I also just, go ahead, Jorge.
I'll just take a little while to make sure that the audio is muted.
Sure.
There it is. Okay.
Just one last thing. It does start off a little slow. What you're seeing here in the blue would normally be like your home environment or wherever you're deploying it. It's really smart that or I guess it was fortunate. It was very fortunate timing that when this happened, just because, yeah, being able to see these things and educate yourself from a distance is more and more relevant nowadays. So sorry, Kristina, Dustin, if you guys want to comment.
You're doing great. Yeah, so hopefully, I mean, for one, wow, I had no idea that there was so much detail that goes into this. And yeah, so I know y'all use terms that were also foreign to me. And so, but having a visual, as I explained earlier, as you're explaining, gives you a better idea of what they're talking about. And so with this app, I'm hoping, just like how I thought, flip of a switch, this app will teach everybody, what the process looks like, what it is. And I believe you can ask questions, is that right? Or if it has questions, it'll ask you and you have to, there you go. Very cool.
Yeah, and I like how it goes. I like how it goes step by step, right? It starts all the way from the beginning and shows, where the resources we use to produce power come from, as well as knowledge recall. I think it's a great learning tool. As you can see here, it's starting to show you how when you burn the coal in the stacks, it actually creates heat, which creates steam through boilers, and then it actually starts to turn the turbine. Once that turbine starts spinning, there's electromagnetic deals around the turbine that start producing that electricity, that energy that we need. And then, of course, like I talked about earlier, once that electricity comes out of that power plant, it's only at a certain voltage, right? So it needs to be stepped up. And I'm hoping, here shortly, we'll get to the point where you see that substation where those transformers are. And from there, it'll step up the voltage so it can be carried over those distances we were talking about earlier. So I just like the way it goes through every little step. It's very educational. I know when I started at CPS Energy, I was a distribution trainee, which only dealt with, the distribution portion of our electric system. And, I only thought this is all that exists, right? And then through the years, you start to want to learn more and more and more. And when I moved into the operations center, you start to see the big picture and how all of these moving parts come together. So I think these tables and this virtual reality is just amazing. I'd be willing to use it, for new employees to get the big picture. People that don't have that background that we all come from. So.
And that's, that's what I was thinking. So now that we're in this, current situation with COVID, previous, we used to give tours through the power plant. Well, we can't do that anymore. Well, for one, because of safety. And then two, look at where we're at right now. But this, why would you need to go anywhere when you can just, use this app? Like Dustin said, it explains everything in great detail. And it allows you to interact with it. So yeah, there's just so many benefits to it, especially for our interns. So this summer we weren't able to have any interns, but I did have them test this out, and they're supposed to provide feedback. One of them was, just thrilled because she had always wanted to go to the power plant, but couldn't because of, what's going on. And she said it did provide lots of details, And I just see it as something maybe sort of like a virtual tour, you know, for schools as well.
One part of the app that I was fascinated by as I was learning about it was all the recycling that happens inside the power plant, and how San Antonio's buildings and the like are using this recycled material in order to grow as well.
Yeah, and that's funny that you said that, Jorge. I was unaware of that, right? And I've worked here for 14 years, right? I knew what the power plant did. I knew how it worked, but you know, you never ever think of what happens to the leftovers. What are we doing with them? So even when I was watching the video for the first time, I learned something, right? And I'm one of the content experts that provided stuff for y'all. So it's great.
Shout out to Kristina for getting us in contact with all the content experts and being able to share, you know, a little bit of information you knew, and this person knew, and this person knew, to make like a really well-rounded app.
And there's room to add to this, right? Wow. So gosh, the possibilities could just be endless.
I think some of the upgrades that we already were talking about, and Jorge is very good about whenever we're building something. I don't necessarily like to cut corners, but I like things to get done as fast as possible. Where Jorge will make sure that now, if we are going to set up, you know, what's happening underground, it'll take us 20 minutes instead of 3 days to do it.
Yeah, so you'll see those all over the city. Those are our transmission towers. Like I said, to get energy long distances, it had to be stepped up from the power plant. And it also needs a wire that's capable of carrying that much current long distances. So you'll see those all over the city. I want to say, you know, I do the new hire tour. Well, I did the new hire tour when we were still operating normally to all the new interns. And, you know, we talk about the miles and miles of transmission lines that CPS Energy has, distribution lines that cover, you know, that serve, you know, 800,000 customers daily. And for y'all to be able to see how that power gets to your home and all the different ways, the different equipment. And it also helps raise awareness, right? If something's wrong, you kind of learn what it's supposed to look like, and you can always call us to come and fix it, especially like the video showing. Trees falling on wire. Vegetation is one of our biggest causes for outages. And it also can teach you to stay away from it, because a lot of the times that wire can still be low enough for you to touch and energize, which is very dangerous. So, and that's what my guys do. My guys are the first responders. They're the ones who come out during all times of the night, any weather, day and night, 24/7, weekends, holidays, to take care of those hazards and get y'all's lights back on. So.
If it didn't go through all of the little pieces, what would happen if like the electricity didn't go through like the up and the up and the down and
if we were to raise that voltage and transmit it straight through from that power plant on those transmission towers into your home, you wouldn't have a home left. Current causes heat. High current would just catch everything on fire, right? So that's what all those devices are supposed to do, is to protect you and bring it down to a usable voltage for your homes, businesses. Your light bulbs would all pop and everything would start smoking. It wouldn't be pretty. So like I said, every piece has a very important part to the whole system. So.
Rebecca, I wanted to go back. So when you mentioned about, you know, meeting and you know, creating this, I want to touch on partnerships. You know, CPS Energy, we can make electricity. We can do that. There's different ways that we can create energy. However, to create something like this, it requires reaching out to others, and that's where partnerships come in. We can't create everything, so we depend on partnerships with other companies who specialize in certain things to help us create what we want. from there, it just turns into a great relationship because we start learning from each other. So, I mean, for those of you who are, I know working on your robots or what have you, and you're trying to do everything yourself, remember, it's important for you to reach out to others who are the experts. They can help you. And then from there, you create a wonderful partnership, and you can work, together, moving forward, and who knows what else you can develop. But yeah, I just wanted to comment on that partnerships are really important.
We talked earlier about skill sets, and I just wanted to point out that some of those skill sets, it's okay to not have any skill on it. When I left my engineering job and thought, hey, I want to start doing virtual reality, guess what? There was no curriculum for virtual reality. I had to learn everything from scratch. It's not like now I believe there actually are curriculums in college and the like for doing this sort of experiences. When I started, there wasn't any. It was new ground. And I don't think you need to be college bound in order to explore your skill sets or expand your skill sets on something that you might enjoy like this.
Yes, all of my training was completely left field from technology. When I left high school, I trained to be a ballroom dancer, and that's what I did until I met Jorge. And then we started collaborating, and not everything that I learned about the AR, VR did I learn from him, but he taught me how to find the resources I needed to teach myself.
I think I'm gonna pause this video and hopefully go to the next scene. Oh wow, we ran out of time.
So, I'm excited. Actually, this is the first time that we've actually spoken about the app, to the public. So this is exciting. We're getting everybody, excited like us we just can't wait to see the actual piece. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. There's endless possibilities, as far as, learning about the distribution process, plus also, understanding the various careers that go into developing something like this. Yeah, also, Dustin, there's STEM in your position, would you share some of that?
I'm on mute. Nope. I think I'm having audio issues. I barely heard you.
So you were alignment at one time, is that right? One time.
Okay, can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay, you were breaking up. So yeah, when we talk about career paths, right, I started right out of high school, October 2006. I was a distribution trainee for 5 years. After that, the way CPS worked, I was like, I wanted to do bigger things. I wanted to move on. I wanted to move up, right? So I applied to the operations center, and that's where I became a distribution operator. I was a distribution operator for 4 years, which is basically everything from the transmission towers that we saw down, learning about all the substations, all the parts of the distribution system. And then I started testing up and learning more, and went to transmission, which is the bulk electric system. And everybody thinks CPS is, just a little bubble, but you don't realize that our transmission system's tied into transmission systems all over Texas. So you have to learn everybody's business process, the way everything works. And it comes down to one slip up, you could cause the whole state to go out, right? So you learn a lot. I don't have a college background. Everything I've done is just, like y'all said, reading and hands-on. We have classes, but it's a great opportunity. CPS is a great opportunity. I always say, once you get your foot in the door, there's endless opportunities for you. And now I'm in charge of a department that I didn't see in my future. It just happened to come around, that I loved. and I still get to be involved with all of CPS Energy because my guys, they're still involved in all the different parts, and it's a great company to work for.
Yeah, who knows where these careers can take you.
Yeah.
I was a teacher for many years, and who knew that my position existed? It doesn't have STEM in it. It's not cool like y'all's, but still, who knew it could lead to doing something like this, working with amazing people. And these people, they teach you so many things as well. Yeah, no, thank you. This is really cool.
I think I'm gonna stop the share so that they can see our faces again. There we are.
Well, I just wanted to say on behalf of our First in Texas team, we thank each and every one of you for sharing your knowledge, wisdom, and insight to help our students learn more about the electric industry and app development. We hope you found today's session interesting and learning more about augmented reality and how an app is developed. I certainly did, and I thank you for sharing what you shared today. I'm Susan Ashmore, and check out our calendar for all of our virtual sessions coming up very soon, including our Women Are First in Texas. Good night.